Good afternoon. Today I'm going to continue talking about various emotional problems that can come connected with rewards and punishments, are developed with rewards and punishments, and that's why we should say no to rewards and punishments. One of these is the dissociation. I know very little about it. I'm not a psychologist, but I understand it is the feeling that a person gets when uh, they have a choice between staying with somebody who gives them a wonderful feeling of love, but at the same time, very often gives the opposite terrible feeling of very being attacked and hurt and abused. So this makes the person, and especially if it's a child, the child will become just sort of, the word is, they just don't do anything. They become immobilized. They start using the right side of their brain instead of watching what's happening. If they can kind of hide out, they might start using the right side of their brain instead of the left side, which watches what's going on and thinks logically. They might start thinking about nice things, imagining nice things to try to escape, which is okay, which is actually a protection for the child. So this may develop that part of their brain, the imaginative side of the brain. And then later on, when they get older, they might, they do continue having problems throughout their life if they have been badly treated in childhood, abused. So when they're quite a bit older, they can find themselves paranoid. And that also is the use, I believe, of that side of the brain, the right side, where they are imagining now what's happening now. And since they've had such a terrible background, they, instead of imagining something good, when they notice some discrepancies, some anomalies that can't be explained, and they're trying to figure out what in the heck is going on, and they want to, because of their background of being abused so much, they want to protect themselves. They want to survive. So they think the worst, and they start thinking in a paranoid way because that part of their brain was developed by that situation when they were young. I mean, this could happen. This is my understanding, but I'm not a psychologist. I haven't studied years and years from books about this. However, when a person is paranoid, I think that's the feeling of a fear of sudden punishment without an explanation, sort of like you're not expecting it at all, and all of a sudden, boom, there you are, punished. So this person could be, because of having a bad background, they could be watching out to survive, and they could be imagining with this side of the brain, my right. So they imagine, instead of just thinking straightforward, they start imagining, oh, I wonder what they're saying behind my back. I wonder if this is part of a plan to hurt me in some way. And then they start imagining, oh, it could be this, it could be that. They compare it with what's going on. They imagine, and then they can have a whole scenario imagined up because they're so good at it. And it's pure paranoia. So if they could, instead of imagining bad stuff, purposely try to imagine something good, this could help them perhaps to get over that paranoia and say, well, maybe the reason they did this strange thing is because they like me and they're trying to make friends with me and they don't know how to, so they did this strange thing. And or just explain it in some positive way rather than thinking in the typical negative way, which would be typical considering what they've been through. But just force themselves to say, well, maybe it's a good thing, whatever's happening, and just imagine something up, because they've got the imagination, it seems. If they can imagine this whole paranoid scenario, then just switch it into something good. And then they might relieve themselves of a lot of stress that way because they don't know what's happening anyway. They just know these odd things are happening, maybe in their job, maybe they've got a new job, and maybe they've been quitting all their jobs because they think something's happening all the time and it's not, but they just feel they have to quit. So now they could stay if they could just imagine up something more positive. Okay, it might not be true, but at least they could stay in their job. Another emotional problem connected with rewards and punishment, or both, is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Let's say a child is punished severely for stealing. When he gets older, he may start having OCD about any little thing that he takes by mistake. And maybe he's been punished many times. It probably happens the more punishment you get, the worse the chance is, I would think, of getting something like OCD. So he spends hours of his day trying to figure out, do I have to take this little paperclip back because I stole it by mistake from that person in that office? Do I have to go all the way back across the city, which would take hours to get to return that paperclip? He might spend hours trying to figure that out, and that's a lot of time wasted. And an obsessive person, he's obsessing about that little thing for hours. That's what OCD would amount to. Some Christian leaders, meaning well, have tried to get people to act good by telling them that God is going to punish them. Now, that's a very big punishment because that would be for all eternity in hell. I mean, that would be a very big punishment. Now, I believe these Christian leaders are mistaken. I believe that God is not like that at all. If he were, he would be an ogre, some kind of an ogre, and God is love. God is not an ogre in my belief. In order to get over OCD, it's important to realize that God does not punish, because this can be behind some tremendous waste of time brooding over something that you know darn well doesn't matter, and yet you feel compelled to do this because of your guilt. And the reason you have guilt is that fear of punishment again, such as, I think paranoia is also a fear of unexpected punishment. Now, this OCD would be more a fear of expected punishment. Now, I did this, and maybe it's something more terrible than stealing. It might be something bigger. And you, instead of just saying, I'm sorry, God, I think that was a mistake, and understanding that God forgives, because it's too late to change it anyway. You already did whatever it was. The person will obsess and lose their life over it. They're not living while they're obsessing, and it's not doing any good. So it's important for children to understand that God does not punish, and adults too, anybody. And the story of the prodigal son is a better way to understand the way God operates, I believe. And human beings do punish. So this can get children and adults mixed up. They think, well, punishment exists and it's terrible, so therefore God must punish. No, God does not follow what human beings do. So a person who has OCD could say to himself, God doesn't punish. Maybe I will be punished for this by a human being, but God does not punish. That will free the person from that OCD attack. There are natural negative results from our actions. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about extrinsic punishment. And it is important, and sometimes it's very difficult to see the difference between natural results, which can be very bad. Like if you jump out of a window, what's going to happen? Third floor, what's going to happen? That's your natural effect right there, and nobody's punishing you. Or an extrinsic punishment, which could be a spanking for a child, but sometimes it's not that clear which is which. like you might have to control something because you don't want something to happen, such as having to keep the child inside, because if they go outside, they won't listen to you and they're going to run away because they always do, and you don't want to lose the child. So you might have to keep them in, but you got to make it clear to them this is not a punishment. This is just a natural result because I'm afraid you might run away. You have to explain that to people. And then if you do not punish, then you will not get the fear and the guilt when you do something wrong, because you're going to know, oh yeah, I don't punish. God doesn't have to punish either. So you're not going to have that OCD. It helps you not to get an attack of OCD if you yourself do not punish, because you can understand that other people might not punish either, and especially God, who loves us. Okay, I'm not a psychologist, but I can take clients and I can coach them. So if you want to be coached by me in regard to some of these examples that I'm giving, just let me know. I would be glad to take a few clients to coach. Okay, but I'm not a psychologist. I'm just coaching clients. Okay, a narcissist tends to see everything from the question of how will it affect me. So narcissism is another problem. We could have that problem where we think too much about, am I going to be rewarded or punished for this? For example, if I do this, will I be rewarded or punished? If I am not going to be punished and I want to do it, and my brain has not been developed the right way, then I will do it regardless of the possible very bad real results affecting other people and other things. One time I was a substitute in the Chicago West Side. It was had some very serious problems of discipline in that school. I went into a math class. I was there for a few minutes putting math problems that the teacher had left on the board, and it was a sophomore class. And I could see they're like bigger than I am, and they're not going to listen to me. That I knew. So I didn't bother even turning around when the bell rang. I just kept writing on the board. All of a sudden, I heard the sound like, like that, several voices making that sound. And I turned around and the window was open. They had thrown out one of those old heavy computers, big computers like this, that they used to make. Okay, they had thrown it out of a fourth floor window. So I think this was the type of person the ones who did it, who think, well, can we get away with it? Okay, then let's do it. And not think that they could be killing somebody on the first floor, not even think about it, because their brains, which are very plastic, we have recently found out, have plasticity, which means they move around, they can change, they can improve, they can change a lot of things. Well, in their childhood, they used, I believe, the plasticity was created to make those brains unable, because of so much reward and punishment, they were unable to see what they were doing. And that is the way a narcissist can be. And I want to see how much time I have here to talk, because I got another good idea to say. But I only have 1 minute approximately. Let's see how much I can say. Okay, so somebody like our ex-president, who used to make deals between him and one other person. I believe he was thinking in terms of a competition to see who can get what they want. And instead of thinking in terms of the common good, he, I think, is limited in his thinking. He thinks in terms of who's going to win this competition. And when he was young, he was like when he was in high school, his father punished him he understood it as a punishment, sending him to a boarding school. And at that boarding school, they had punishment of the students of each other. So he was punished that way, and then he joined in the punishers. And so that was terrible. That it was, they would leave it up to the kids. One time, one of the kids ended up in the hospital, and the school got into some trouble for that, got a bad name. And when he was a senior,